when you're working with these children, parents are at a loss a lot of times, and at times they want to have them seem more normal. But when we help the families really embrace the children for who they are, they see, the beauty of it, and they see what life will be like with autism. When the families finally see that, then their perspectives change.
Can you walk me through a moment, a time when you did see that? Describe what beauty looks like in that scenario for me.
When parents can go through the challenges, because we're not going to say that autism is a beautiful diagnosis and it's, their life is going to be more fulfilling because of that. I think it's when they accept that, and then it allows them to not judge books by their cover, compassionate to other people's situation. I think they see the beauty of the diversity of humans as we are. I think that's really important, to actually accept people for who they are and still make their life as fulfilling as possible for them, but without changing the essence of who they are.
The work you do in your organization, the Griffin Promise Autism Clinic, is a very important task to our community, and more importantly, to the neurodivergent community that you serve. Emily, walk me through what you do today and how you actually got there.
Well, let's see. I've been an occupational therapist since 2011 from the University of Oklahoma, and I moved here. My husband's from Fort Smith. He's a Fort Smith native, and I started at a pediatric clinic, the Gregory Kistler Center. It's been here for a long time.
Okay.
And then we moved back to Tulsa for his job, and that's where I got even further into the pediatric side of things. I was an instructor for a little bit for occupational therapy assistants in Muskogee, Oklahoma. We got to move back a couple years ago, which is great because we have family here, and decided to bring the Griffin Promise here because that's where I worked in Broken Arrow in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And I just love how they approach autism and the neurodivergent community. They really embrace them and they don't try to change them.
Yes.
And I think that's really important, to actually accept people for who they are and still make their life as fulfilling as possible for them, but without changing the essence of who they are.
One of the things you said that piqued my interest is you said that, they accept them for who they are and they're not really trying to make them change who they are. It sounds like you have experience with that, or you've seen that. Where does that come from?
Yeah. So I think when you're working with these children, because I specialize in pediatrics, the parents are at a loss a lot of times. And at times they want to have them seem more normal or, blend in better, which I get it. Sometimes
Yes.
You don't want to be the person who's different and drawing attention to yourself. But when we help the families really embrace the children for who they are, they see, the beauty of it, and they see what life will be like with autism. Mm-hmm. And I think when the families finally see that, then their perspectives change.
How many years have you been doing it total?
Since 2011, so 14 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So 14 years. Can you walk me through a moment, an idea, just kind of paint a picture for us of a time when you did see that transition from maybe a family came in and they were having a bad perspective. They were trying to change their kid. They were hoping that their kid was different. You guys helped them see how to accept them as they are. Walk me through a scenario where that happened. Obviously, you don't have to share names and all that stuff, but yeah.
Let's see. I think when I was in Broken Arrow, since I've only been here for 2 years, we had a little girl come in and she was recently diagnosed. And when they're recently diagnosed, you have a variant of responses. Some people are relieved because they're like, I knew it, now it's just on paper. Some people are shocked. Some people will cry. And, we tell parents it's okay to grieve, because you do have, as a parent, kind of this vision of what you want to do with your kids and, your relationship with them. And that changes with a diagnosis like autism, whether you know it or not. I think it changes that. And so we had a family who was recently diagnosed, and they were really sad about it because they had all these dreams and aspirations for their child. But we helped them set up a playroom at their house, and, they came frequently, and the daughter, really blossomed, and they accepted it, right? And I think they saw the beauty of where she was going and all the progress she was making, while making her achieve the things that she will be able to when she grows older because of the work they did when she was younger. They weren't feeling as lost or sad about the diagnosis, really just about her possibilities of the future. So I think that was a really important milestone in this career, is just allowing the parents kind of be on them with their journey and navigating it with them.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I've noticed with parents, caretakers, and all sorts of people who take care of people who are on the spectrum at all, or autism specifically, is it really does seem like going through that experience, and when they do accept the kid, the person, the adult for who they are, it actually changes them and they become a better human. Have you experienced that? And kind of tell me what that's looked like. Because you're describing beauty, and I think that's what you're talking about. Describe what beauty looks like in that scenario for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I think when parents can go through the challenges, because we're not going to say that autism is a beautiful diagnosis and it's, their life is going to be more fulfilling because of that. I think it's when they accept that, and then it allows them to not judge books by their cover. I think it allows them to be more empathetic to other people and compassionate to other people's situation. When they feel judged in a store when their child is having a meltdown, I think they see the beauty of the diversity of humans as we are, and that we all go through different trials and tribulations and journeys, no matter what it is. So I think a lot of times that allows the families to kind of put that into perspective when they're looking at other people because of what they see or hear or feel when they're out with their child or themselves, if, as they get older.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it really sounds like what you're saying is it changes the way the parents, caretakers, they see the world, and not necessarily the way the person being taken care of sees the world.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm, I think so.
Okay, so Broken Arrow, excuse me. I was looking up the website and I was like, okay, are they local? Do they live here? So did it start there?
Yes.
And if so, were you around when it started? Kind of walk me through what was happening there that was so successful that you wanted to bring it here when you moved because of your husband's job. Then also walk me through the transition period of what that looked like when you transitioned over here. Was it an easy thing? Was it difficult? Was it successful? All those different things.
Yeah. So the Griffin Promise Autism Clinic started 11 years ago now in Broken Arrow, a suburb of Tulsa. The executive director, Lori Frederick, her son has autism. He's now 21, I believe. They go, her husband and herself, went through all the same stuff, trying to find everything, they could do, all the therapies, everything. And they found an approach called Sunrise, which was in Massachusetts. It's basically where you create a playroom in your house and you play with them and you engage with them. And that kind of brings them out of their shell and into your world a little bit, so you can connect with them, and you're connecting with them with things they're interested in. Because if you want to be their friend and you want to help them to thrive, you have to be in their world. And so she just loved that aspect of it, of going into his world instead of always drawing him out of his world, which is really challenging at times, especially when they're little. So she loved that, and she did extensive training in that, and decided, I believe Griffin, which is his name, was about 10 or so, that she wanted to open a clinic that kind of brought those approaches into a therapy type situation, because it was really challenging to find therapists she connected with that didn't see him as someone they needed to fix or change, because she didn't want that. She just wanted the best for him while also being who he is. So that's kind of where it started. It started as a speech therapist clinic, and I was not there at the time. because I was living here. But I finally got to work there in 2019, and I started their occupational therapy department at the clinic. So I was their first OT. And they said it took a while to find the right person. And thankfully we got along really well. We kind of had the same visions where I didn't know what the name of an approach I was using. They kind of gave me the name and some of the tools and trainings that they had done. I said, yes, that's what I want to do. That's how I want to do therapy. So it was a great compliment to each other about how I already was doing therapy and then what they taught me and how they trained me to continue the way I saw it. And then worked there for 4 years. And then my husband got the job transfer, and I really wanted to have a clinic here like that, because a lot of the clinics here, I hadn't seen it that way. How we were doing therapy is different. I wanted to bring that to Fort Smith. I wanted to bring something new and refreshing, because a lot of parents are looking for the kind of therapy that we do, and it's just not here yet, or not that I know of. There's lots of great therapists, and I've met tons of great therapists since I've been back, but it's always a little different than what I do. And so thankfully, Lori's like, hey, you have to move. Would you like to open a satellite clinic? I said, yes, that's what I was dreaming and hoping and praying that I could do, but I didn't want to push the boundaries a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I did that. And right now, we're growing slowly. I had to kind of adjust to moving back and figuring out what I wanted it for the community. I just didn't want to bring something and then make the community fit into what I was doing or my dream or vision for it. I kind of wanted the community to shape it for me, and because every place needs different things.
Yes.
And, I just did not want to be just another therapy clinic.
Yes.
That I knew, but I wasn't sure how Fort Smith needed it to be or what it needed it to be. And so now I'm kind of growing that vision, and this year really meeting a lot of people in the community and in the autistic community, whether that's individuals themselves or families, and just learning really. And so right now, my office is at our church at First United Methodist Church, but we're looking at a bigger space and maybe partnering with some other clinics around town. So that's kind of where we are now. I know from talking to people in Fort Smith that I want to do an open to the public sensory gym.
Oh, yeah.
To where families can come, and, we have great things here. But a lot of times they're overwhelming for the population I work with. Or the parents feel judged because their kid's not acting a certain way. And so I want it to be like a judgment-free place where these families and these kids can meet other people like them and not feel judged, and have a place to regulate their sensory system. So we're going to have different gross motor tools, and I have a whole vision.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then also, doing group stuff. I think a lot of people fall through the cracks between school and clinics. So kind of just having those social skill groups, and for all ages, including adults, because, it's really hard when you're an adult and you're kind of like, oh, you graduated, nothing else for you. And so I keep hearing over and over again, we need more things for the adults. We need more things after they graduate high school, and that kind of stuff. And I think there's a lot of things coming to Fort Smith that are in the process that hopefully we can all work together and get that going.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, can you walk me through 3 months of a relationship of a kid with autism coming into your clinic? What does it look like over the next 3 months? If, from day one they walk in the clinic, what does it look like?
So we do an evaluation, we talk to the parents, and then kind of come up with a game plan about their goals for their kiddo, the things that are most important to them. I work a lot with non-speakers, so that'll be a kiddo who doesn't have words for communication, requesting. Sometimes we call it echolalia or scripting from things they've heard. And sometimes they can use it on command or to request stuff, but not always. So that's kind of what I specialize in. So a lot of times the parents are like, whatever you think. But I try to take it to where important things to them. That's the basis of occupational therapy, is doing what's important for the family or the person you're treating. So we kind of start with that. And then I tell them that their child is amazing, that they are intelligent, that they understand what you're saying. Because a lot of times I think in the outside of autism world, they're looked at as intellectually disabled or not having interests outside of what they look like they have interests with. So I kind of just explained to them that I'm going to treat them like their age. I presume competence. I don't talk to them like they're a baby unless, they're little. But I treat them as their age. And I always explain to the individual I'm working with straight to them. I don't try to talk around them or about them in front of them. I talk to them like they are a capable human being. And then we kind of go from there. I kind of look at, okay, your motor is impaired, so we're going to work on coordination and balance, because that's usually where it kind of starts. And then we work towards what their goals are. If they have a goal of working at the house and doing chores, just like a typical child should, they're capable. I tell the parents, you have to have higher expectations typically. Typically, the families I see, their expectations are not too high. But that's just kind of the culture that we live in with autism and other disabilities. But I just try to give them an opportunity to really embrace their child and the individual and work with them on the important things at their house and at school.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you go through these different therapy times with them, which is really cool. One of the things you said there is that, well, I heard you say, it's not only do you work on therapy with the kids with autism, it really is a whole family. You're really, attending to the whole family's needs and what they're going through, saying things like, you're just letting the parent know your kid doesn't understand you. You are doing a great job. Like, that's therapy for the parents as well. So that being said, what does a win look like for you? Like, you go through, let's just say I'm doing 3 months, but that could be, I'm just making something up.
Yeah.
But you're doing 3-month period. At the end of the 3 months, you look back over the progress you've had with this individual. What does success look like? What does a win look like?
I think a win is probably where I'll focus, because a lot of times we see our kiddos for several years to make them as independent as possible. That's our long-term goal in occupational therapy and at the clinic. But a daily win, sometimes I do question, like, is this doing anything? Or I'm not sure what to do with this kiddo next. And I just try my best, and that's all you can do as a therapist or as a parent. But I think a win, a lot of times, it'll be the little things. Oh, they sat and worked on this thing for 1 minute.
Yeah.
Oh, I helped them regulate their system. They were really dysregulated, meaning, maybe they're running all around, or they seem like something happened at school, but they can't tell us because they're non-speaking. So a lot of times I'll try to read their body language or work with them on learning what helps them regulate, whether that be gross motor stuff. I'll, a lot of times I'll do deep pressure. I'll bring out all my sensory tools, and just allowing them to feel more comfortable in their body at that moment sometimes is a win. Yeah. And we don't have a win every day, and that doesn't mean we had a bad session or we didn't take any opportunities that maybe we missed, but it does mean that we just needed to do a lot of things that maybe weren't on my agenda.
Yes.
But we did something, right? Whether it be, we helped them regulate, or we helped the parent understand that, their kid's not a bad kid. Let's try these different things. And they learned a new approach that they can try at home.
What does connecting to the community look like for what you do with kids with autism or adults? What does that look like, and how important is that?
Yeah, so that's one thing I'm learning. We actually, a couple of friends and I started a new Facebook group, the River Valley Autism Community. So in December of 2024, and it already has almost 300 people in it. And that to me tells me that this community needs something else. And I keep hearing in that group or from parents that I work with, where are the resources? We can't find the resources. And I think part of it is, segmented just in how our medical system works currently. So I'm learning to meet with other people in the autistic community, whether it's autistics themselves or the parents or the professionals. And I think we all have to come together to create something. And I've loved that this year has been a year for growing that and learning about that. There's so many wonderful organizations and therapists and families out there who want to help build this community. And so I think it's growing. And the resources are there. We just have to have like one spot where everybody knows what everybody else is doing to help the person or the family.
Yes. That makes a lot of sense. So when I think about really all the stuff you just said and the things that you do, thinking about it from my perspective and seeing what I've worked at special needs camps in the summer and I've done video. It's been a great time. And I've done that for a couple of years. And every time I meet someone who is a caretaker, and let's just talk caretaker specifically, but I feel like you're also, you're taking care of these kids as well. So,
Yes.
So I'm just throwing you in there. I really think that and hope and pray that when the people like you get into heaven, you have the biggest mansion ever. And I imagine that you have to, because I can't think of more selfless people, because it can be so frustrating working with someone and trying to figure out how to communicate with them when they can't communicate back, and it's not their fault. And yes, the it's not their fault makes it a little bit more easy to understand, but it's still incredibly frustrating day in, day out. And a lot of people can get bitter, mean, etc. But you don't choose to do that. A lot of the caretakers that I've worked with, they don't choose to do that. But my question that I'm leading to is, did you ever doubt that what you do and the work that you do is enough? Or did you ever doubt the path that you're on, changing course because whatever reason?
Yeah, I think, as a professional or as a caregiver, I think you have to question it. If you don't question it, then it's going to stay the same and, status quo, all that kind of stuff. But I think really the people who should have the mansions are the individuals themselves, and the parents who are there every day. I see these kids max an hour a week, right? So I always tell the parents that they know their child best, and I'm just there to support them, with whatever they need. So I think if professionals don't take that approach where we don't know everything and we're not going to, make this child not autistic anymore, and it's not us doing the work, it's the individual doing the work, and the caretaker is doing the work every single day.
Yes.
I work with Spelling to Communicate, which they use boards with the letters on it of the alphabet, and they poke the letters to spell what they want to say. But if the parents don't do it at home, it's not going to go anywhere. And I resonate with them about them having their plates full already, but I try to tell them that this is their journey and on their path, and we're going to come off the path and go back on it, and we're going to find a different trajectory, right? Like, you can't do better if you don't know better. So I think once someone finds out like their child is capable of this, I think that helps a lot to just stay on the path of helping the individual be the best they can be. But I always go off the path and, try to do better.
Yes, for sure. Okay, before we dive into the second layer, I have a very funny, something just popped in my head.
Okay.
We were watching this last night, and you may not know at all what this is, but have you seen Love on a Spectrum?
I have seen a couple episodes, not all of it, but I have seen a couple here and there.
Okay, so what's your take? What do you think? Of what you've seen, obviously.
Of what I've seen. Yeah, I think what I've seen, it looks great and fun. And, I've seen, this is Autism Awareness Month in April, Autism Acceptance, Autism Awareness. And so I've seen a little bit more of it with it being April. But I think, one of my moms that I am friends with on Facebook, she posted it. She's just like, this gives me hope, for her son. Like, I'm not expecting that he will be able to do this or at this level or whatever, but just, I think the future's scary. And I think that stuff like that, Love on the Spectrum. And I think there's also an autistic woman on Survivor this season.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so I think just having in the public eye, right? Like normalizing neurodivergency is important.
Yes.
I think that's what's important about it. I don't think necessarily those individuals are being taken advantage of or anything like that. I think it's just great to get it out in the public, and it's like a normal thing because it is, right?
Yeah. And I love that it paints a picture of what their life actually looks like.
Yeah.
And it really does have a wide range of people who are on different points on the spectrum.
Yeah,
like, you have
exactly.
people who are living by themselves,
Right.
to people who obviously can't live by themselves, to people who just live with a best friend and they need to have someone in the house.
Right.
So it really is interesting.
Yes.
And it's hilarious.
Yes.
It's hilarious. For people who haven't spent time with someone who is autistic or on the spectrum, they say whatever they want to
yes.
say. And it's truth a lot of times that we
Yep.
don't feel comfortable saying. And so
agree.
it's just so funny to
I
me.
agree.
Yeah, I bet you hear crazy things. And then,
Oh, yeah. And I think, there is a fine line, like, between you do have to learn, no matter if you're on the spectrum or not, that things are rude.
yes.
So I think there's that navigating that too. Like, of course, I see it all the time. And even if they're non-speaking and say they have a communication device. And, I was doing an interview when I first moved here with a non-speaker using the boards. And the person doing the interview was so like shocked and like what this kid was saying. He was like 17, I think. And he's, well, where did you learn how to speak like that? She goes, well, all I've done my whole life is listen.
Wow.
And so he has this huge vocabulary, and the way he says things is so witty and quick. And, people just don't think that they have this level of intelligence that they do.
Yes.
And you still have to learn, though, that certain things are rude.
Yes. Yes.
But I do think it's hilarious because they don't have this similar filter that we do, or the timidness, I guess you could say, because they're like, well, that's what I'm thinking.
Yes. Okay. PG-13 rated. What's the funniest thing you've heard from a kid with autism in the clinic?
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh goodness. I'm thinking.
Take your time.
I think because we work with a lot of non-speakers.
Yeah, that's
it'll be, they'll repeat something they heard from a show and they won't know it's inappropriate to say. So they'll just kind of like say it. We also have some individuals who have tics as well. So, they'll say some inappropriate or funny things.
Yes.
I think one of my new spellers that I see, we really learned certain words that he likes to say, and he just spells them all out. And I think it's funny because I'm like, Mom, you made him say that, right? Because the thing with spelling is people think that the person holding the boards is doing the spelling for them or whatever. I'm like, oh, you told him to use that cuss word?
Yeah.
You told him to say, whatever it was he heard on the...
Yeah.
I think recently she said, where did you put your keyboard? And on a different board, he said, I don't know, y'all need to keep this house cleaner. He goes, well, you can help. And he just walked away. It's just, she goes, the y'all got me. I didn't even know, like, it's just funny,
How do you navigate that? Because again, you do want to teach that, like, hey, this is rude, but also like they are learning and it's not their fault what they're being exposed to that they're learning. So, what do you do in that moment? Let's say you're walking over and a kid who's nonverbal is writing out something very rude. Do you say good job or like, what do you do?
I think it depends, because I think it's, kind of like if you're having a private conversation, you kind of have to navigate that. Like, is this something that you want me to say aloud to like everybody, or is this like a you and me private conversation? Like if you're whispering, to someone. So I think some of it is the discretion of that. Like if you're in a public setting. But, sometimes if a speller says, I've heard a story of like, the speller said, I don't want to do this today, go home. And they're like, well, I guess I have to respect that, or, well, I'm here to help, or, just like sometimes I think of us as personal trainers.
Yes.
In a way of like, no one really wants to do this, and I know it's going to stink, but it's my job to push you.
Yes.
So I think part of it is that, I have a speller that gets very mad when I make him do more than one question. And he goes, no, just one. And he'll yell at me,
yes,
and be upset. But I just explain, like, this is what I do. Like, I'm here. I know you can do it.
Yes.
I'm pushing you for a reason because I know you're capable. You're capable of just doing more than one. right? But if it's inappropriate, I think at our gala we had last weekend in Broken Arrow, they had some spellers up on the front, and one of them said, like, thank you to Spelling to Communicate. It's really given, me a world has opened up. If it wasn't for our mom, and the person holding the board is like waiting, like, oh, where's this going to go? He goes, we wouldn't have a ride. So then she said that, so it's just funny. I think you just have to navigate it a little bit. Like,
yes.
Oh, I love that. Or that's funny. Or I'm not going to say that out loud, but I see what you, told me, but I'm going to keep that and we'll talk about it later.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Okay. We have made it to the second layer, and this is a time where we get to know Emily a little bit deeper, a little bit more on a personal level. So jumping into our first question. If I had been quietly watching your journey over the past 2 years, how would I describe the person who's sitting in front of me today?
I think, so I moved back basically 2.5 years ago. So it's basically since we moved back to Fort Smith. I think it's been a lot of ups and downs. I think I've kind of gone through some of that stuff, like you said, like, am I doing the right thing? Should I move forward and make this thing bigger? Or do I kind of like where it is and it's super small and intimate right now? But I think I've grown as, I have full autonomy, which is great. I love autonomy. But I have that support of the Broken Arrow clinics that's been here for 11 years. And I've really learned a lot. I think I've become more open to where the community is leading me to be. So it's not fully developed yet.
Yeah, for sure.
I think over the 2 years, I've kind of figured out, or starting to figure out, what the community needs for the autistic individuals themselves and the families and the support, and learning, really, I guess, just being open to where it takes me and me not being in charge of it, So I think just maybe as a more open individual and open to new ideas and ways for things to be navigated in this community.
So what do you think of as your anchor? Like, how do you, because you said, you were, or you have been maybe in the past 2 years, you did have those thoughts of, am I doing the right thing? Is the support I'm doing, is it actually support? Is it enough support? Where do you anchor down and say, you know what, I am doing what I'm supposed to? Yeah, I am where I'm supposed to be. What's that for you?
I think it goes back to the families and the individuals I work with every day. I think when they tell me about their frustrations and the little wins they've had, and I think it's really what I do like about being super small, because right now it's just me, I'm everything here for my clinic, but that allows me to have a really close relationship with the families that I do have. They have my personal phone number. They text me and, they'll call me or ask me questions. And, if like a parent's working and they ask, how did it go? Maybe another caretaker brought them. And sometimes I'll record it and send it to them just because I know they're not able to come. But I think one of the things is, I'll tell the parent, oh, they did so great today. They're really working hard on this certain task and they were able to do it, most of the session today. And they'll say, oh, it's so great to hear something positive about their child. Those are the moments I think I'm like, okay, even if I just help one family, that's the right path.
Yes.
That's what keeps me going.
Yes.
And hearing them what they need. I think that's important.
How would your daily life look different if money was no longer a concern?
Oh gosh. Well, right now we're trying to raise money for opening a bigger clinic and opening up the sensory gym. And I'm a big idea person. And my problem is I had to slow down and think of the logistics of how to get there. So I didn't have money problems, or I had all the money. I could create this, my vision in my head. I would be able to open a school for neurodivergent individuals.
Yes.
And that's what I really would love to do. I would be able to have a community and help some other friends in the Fort Smith area and the River Valley that want to do such great, amazing things, and we could, come together and create this wonderful area of acceptance and loving and support for everybody. That would be really great.
Yes. Yeah. You should consider reaching out to Sarah Strum if you don't know who she is.
I do know her.
Okay.
She's a good friend. We go to church together.
Yes.
With 4 kids. Yes, and that's how I learned about you. I watched her
that's
podcast
funny.
on here. So yes,
Yeah.
I know her and I love her, and she's doing great things too.
Because I know they're doing the 4 kids, and it is going to be very, what do you say? Kind of like, I forget the word, touch, feel.
Yes, sensory. Yes.
But I still do see a need for what you're talking about separately.
Yes.
But the same exact thing, but separate.
Yep, and we've met, and I can't wait. She's doing great things, and I'm on one of their committees for the 4 kids, and she's a great supporter. She's supporting the run that we're doing in a couple weeks. So yes, I love Sarah, and we are going to do great things for Fort Smith.
That's awesome.
I'm glad you brought her up, though.
If your soul had an age, what would it be and why?
Say that one more time.
If your soul had an age, what would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think when I was younger, I had to grow up kind of fast. So I think my soul aged quicker than I did.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think now I am catching up to my soul. I think I'm almost 40. I turned 40 in May. And so I would say my soul's finally catching up to my body.
Yeah.
And so I think my soul is about my age now, but I think I had to get there a lot quicker than I was ready, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna, so one thing I want to do at the end of this season is compare answers.
Ooh.
And like kind of dive into the analyze all the different answers, see how different people answered, and make a graph to see where different people fell.
Okay.
But so far, I think what I'm noticing is that people who do age quicker, who did age quicker younger, they aged to a certain point and then they didn't age more than that. It just stayed there. And then when they reached it, everything after that is them aging down. So they're kind of becoming more childlike in their thinking. Not like they're mature. Yes. But like they're trying to get back to that child self of them and that playfulness. Especially, a lot of people when they get into those older years of their lives, it's grandkids, right? It's those types. So it is like sweeter moments in life. But I'm curious to see like the statistics behind it all.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Specifically from people who are in Arkansas and around Fort Smith, from everyone who's came on the show. Yeah. That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun. I think that makes sense to me because that's kind of how I feel. So yeah. I finally caught up to my soul.
If you lost everything tomorrow, what's the first thing you'd do?
Ooh. Let's see. I think I would be thankful my family's still there. They are my rock. They're why I do what I do, and making sure they're okay. I think that'd be the first thing before anything else. And then I'd ask my husband to do the rest.
Yeah.
I just think he is the rock of our family, and I would definitely look to him to see what we should do next, because I'm not good in a crisis.
Yeah.
To be honest.
That's a real answer.
There you go.
What's one thing you wish more people knew about you?
I've learned a lot about myself over the years. I think I've changed a lot throughout the years. I think I wish more people would get to know me and not judge the book by its cover. I've been told a lot of times that people were intimidated when they first met me, and might have been a little put off by me. I'm not sure if it's because I'm 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And
I think it has a lot to do with that.
I have a strong personality. But once people got to know me, they're like, oh, like, you're cool. I'm like, yeah, get to know me, as a person. I have a huge heart. And the people who I'm close to, I love very deeply. And I'm a huge advocate for the people I work with and the people who I love.
Also, I just want to say that people say, I hear that a lot, that people say, oh, you're actually cool. That's just so insulting to say because that lets me know that you thought at some point that I wasn't.
Yes.
Before you got to know me.
Yep.
Don't compliment that way. Just, oh, you're so cool. I'm glad I'm getting to know you. That's so much better.
Yes. I have been told very interesting things over the years that what they thought about me before they got to know me, and that's why I always say it's cliche, but don't judge a book by its cover. Like the people I work with, I mean, they judge them by what they're doing or what they look like, or, I'm like, let's not do that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
It's 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, are you ready for a game?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so this game segment is named Finish That Sentence. I'll start a sentence and you have to finish it in your own words, whatever comes to mind first.
Oh, I'm not good at quick, but I'll try.
Okay, this will be fun. The best advice I've ever gotten was...
Oh.
Whatever comes to mind first.
Don't turn in handwritten homework. My handwriting's atrocious.
That's hilarious. Okay. One thing I can't work without is...
a therapy ball, like an exercise ball. I use it every day, all therapy long.
Okay, so during COVID, were you one of those people, grown-ups, with a fidget spinner?
Oh, yes. I break pens all the time. I have ADHD, so yes.
That's so funny. Okay. If I'm not at the clinic, you'll usually find me...
in the car with my kids, taking them to all the places. I have a 10-and-a-half-year-old and a 7-year-old, and we do all the sports, so I'm in the minivan taking them everywhere.
And you said y'all do all the sports because you're like a basketball player and a volleyball player, like you are, right? All those different things.
Yeah, no. I know I'm 6 feet tall, and I get asked that every day, but no, my son does play basketball, I will say, and he does baseball, but my daughter's like, she does little gymnastics here and there, but I don't do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I work out, but not sports anymore.
We were joking before about how people just come up to her and because how tall are you?
I'm 6 foot. Without shoes. Flat footed.
She's tall. I'm 5'4", so yeah, you're tall,
yes,
especially to me.
Tall.
And she was saying, people come up and ask, oh, volleyball, football, not even a question. It's just volleyball, basketball.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, all the time. And usually it's men. I was saying, you know, usually men just stare at me like, or I'm sorry, but I have to ask, how tall are you? Yeah. And when I say 6 foot, they're like, did you play basketball or volleyball? I was like, nope, sure didn't. But I did do rowing. I grew up in the Seattle area. And I did rowing in high school there. And then I came down here to the University of Tulsa. And
I watched that during the Olympics.
Yep.
It was pretty entertaining. That was my first time watching it. I forgot, maybe we had a lot of people... Not a lot, excuse me. I think we had a couple of people who were competing in the Olympics who were from Arkansas, and I can't remember if
Oh, okay. Oh, I think there was one on track and field.
Yeah.
I think I did hear about one on track and field. And one of my old rowing teammates from college, she was phenomenal. And she went to the Olympics twice.
Was she there this year?
Yes.
Okay, I remember... Yes, rowing specifically. I thought I remember.
Yeah, she was from the University of Tulsa. That's where we went to school together. And yeah, she was on it. And I don't know about anybody from Arkansas, but from TU, she went to the Olympics. She's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Okay. Something I wish everyone knew about autism is, let me say that again for a clean cut. Something I wish everyone knew about autism is.
Don't underestimate them. They're capable of a lot more. No matter where they are on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So, back to that, don't judge a book by its cover.
Okay, there's autism. Then there is obviously being on the spectrum. Is that just a point on the spectrum? And if so, what point?
Yeah. I think it's tricky. I think as a society, we're learning what is autism. 10 plus years ago when I first started, my husband asked, do you think it's being overdiagnosed, autism? And then I was like, no, I don't think it is. I think we're learning more about it. I think we're learning about, what that looks like, what it doesn't look like. And I think you're right. I think there have been those who are on the spectrum. And I think it's really just another way of saying autistic. Back when I was at school, they drilled it into us. It's not autistic. It's someone with autism. And I think it depends on the person. whether, or on the spectrum, however you want to say it. I think the important thing about on the spectrum is knowing that there are different areas of difficulty for each person. And so I think saying on the spectrum or autistic or with autism, I think it's individualized about, if that person likes it being said one way or another. And I think bringing up others who have been very successful with autism or on the spectrum or who are autistic is important. I also think it's important to know that because it's a spectrum, there are those who are never going to be able to do that. I think I've seen a lot about, because I work with the non-speaking side of things, I think sometimes their families feel left out because they don't see it as a superpower and they don't see it as a overall positive to their life. I think those who are on, those who can be in the world and be successful in the world is important to see. I also think it's important to see that that's not everybody. There are those who won't be able to do that and need, more support. I think it's important to know that because it's a spectrum, that everybody needs to be loved on and know that they're a human in this space and that they'll need different things not everybody is the same.
Yes.
I think that's the important thing of on the spectrum.
And just to be clear, so you're saying, because I'm learning here too.
Me too.
Our autism and being autistic are very different.
They're the same to me. So it's interesting because it's really a cultural thing, right?
Okay.
It's a cultural thing that people are navigating and we're always navigating it and learning. And so, if you're a person with autism, if you're autistic or you're on the spectrum, it's all the same thing. It's all the same diagnosis. It's just really how you are verbally saying what it is, if that makes sense.
It's more about those types of tedious or kind of
the nuances.
Yeah, those are more where you fall on the graph spectrum. But saying on the spectrum is a general term, right? So if you can just tell that maybe someone isn't like, they don't have very good, what do you call it when you're not good at speaking with people and having conversations?
Like social skills.
They don't have very good social skills, or you notice that, something's a little bit different about this person.
Yeah.
It's fair or socially acceptable to say maybe that person could be on a spectrum, to think that way, or is it not?
I mean, it could be, right? It could be in your brain. If that helps your brain be able to engage with them in a way that is more beneficial to them, it could be. I think part of it is it's, a label. Part of it is a label. Part of it is like, oh, they're acting this way because they're on the spectrum. I think it depends on how you say it and why you're saying it.
Yes.
Right. So I think it's as long as you're not using it in a negative connotation, I think any of it is fine, as long as it helps you navigate how to communicate with them and how to interact with them.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay, question number 5. If I could snap my fingers and change one thing in the world, it would be
that people have empathy for others. We were kind of talking about empathy and trying to understand where they're coming from. And a lot of times you can never understand where they're coming from, right? But I think just having empathy about what that person's going through, because you don't know. You don't know their history. You don't know their trauma. You don't know what they do on a daily basis with their child. I think just having empathy for others.
Great answer, my friend. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. Before we get out of here, I want to allow you to talk about how people can connect with you, or if someone is actually interested in what you provide, how they can get access to that. Also, any upcoming events. I know you mentioned the run, different things like that. The floor is yours.
Okay. You can reach us at thegriffinpromise.org. There will be, that's for both our clinics, the main clinic, and then the Fort Smith location is also on there up at the top. You can click on there and there's a contact form on the website. You can contact me. I'm Emily. And since it's only me here in Fort Smith, you can email me at Emily, Emily, @thegriffinpromise.com. And we do have a run coming up on April 26th out at Ben Guerin. We'll be out there. It's an 8K and a 1 mile fun run. It's a resource event. We have lots of other clinics and resources out there and family fun events. There'll be an inflatable and all kinds of fun stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.